Welcome back to the Moll Anderson Show. Well, Andrea Syrtash is a sought-after dating and relationship expert and frequently offers relationship advice for national television, including appearances on The Today Show, CBS This Morning, VH1, and coverage in USA Today, Cosmopolitan, and NPR. Syrtash regularly contributes to MSN, Yahoo, and Oprah.com. She's the host of Life Story Project on OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network. She is here today to talk about the book she co-wrote, It's Okay to Sleep with Him on the First Date, and Every Other Rule of Dating Debunked. Andrea, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I want you to know my producer, David, who's single, is going, yeah.
Some guys have high-fived me for sure. Other guys don't believe me, but anyway.
Yeah, I bet you're very popular to the males right now.
Well, I co-wrote it with a male, so
I know.
I'm not single. I'm a married woman. He's a single man, so it was an interesting combination for us to both weigh in on this idea.
Wow. Well, okay, now, since it's right in the title, let's dive right into maybe the most important rule out there, which is never sleep with him on the first date, but you're saying it's okay to?
We are, and just to clarify, the book is not called You Should Sleep with Him on the First Date. We think that would be, there are a lot of reasons not to, but we're saying it's okay if you're a consenting adult and you want to. We certainly don't think you'll ruin your chances forever of being with someone. We've done too much research. We've interviewed too many couples who hooked up on the first date and got married, so we can disprove this rule. And we have 50 other rules in the book, but obviously that was the most eye-catching rule, so that's why we put it on the cover.
Well, so do you think that times have changed and that's why the rules are changing? Because I grew up, I'm 53 years old, so, and as I was growing up, you definitely weren't supposed to sleep with him on the first date,
Well, absolutely, but in other, many years ago, and not even that many years ago, 30 years ago, we got married a lot earlier.
Oh, yes.
So when we were dating, a lot of us had just left university, had just left school, and we didn't have a lot of experience in the real world. When someone is 40 years old, has been living on her own for 20 years, and is told you should never do this or you should always do this, it's kind of insulting to her intelligence at a certain point. She has enough life experience, my co-author and I believe, to make informed decisions based on what works for her and what doesn't. And she knows herself better than any expert knows her. So our main premise of the book is don't trust the rules, trust yourself. And we offer strategies on how to navigate dating, because dating can be awkward. But always or never rules are, just they're outdated.
Well, but don't you think, and maybe it's the old-fashioned in me and whatnot, that not sleeping on the first date might be the better choice, just from the standpoint of, the minute you get into a physical relationship, everything shifts and maybe you're not really getting to know that person. If you were going to sit there and give advice to a young, couple who was trying to make that decision, what would you say?
I'd say follow your gut. By no means should you sleep with someone to try to get a relationship or to...
Thank you.
Here's the thing. Some people, and we've done a lot of research on this. We actually teamed up with Cosmo magazine for our book on a survey. They interviewed 1,000 people across the country, and the question was about sex on the first date. Over 80% of women, 83% of women believe a man will lose interest and respect if they hook up too soon, and close to 70% of men say that's a myth. If I'm interested, I'm interested, and I'll definitely call you again whenever we hook up, because it's really that simple. So by no means, again, am I saying jump into bed on the first date, but sometimes people want to have sex for sex sake. If you're 45 years old and single and you feel like a fun night, I'm not going to tell you shouldn't do that. We can't assume that everyone on a first date wants to get married and is looking for that. And we also can't assume that, one size fits all. If it aligns with your values, and again, this is based on so many couples we've interviewed who said, I wasn't planning to hook up so early, or I wasn't planning to break all these dating rules that I always lived by. But I had a certain kind of connection and chemistry, and my instinct took over, and this is what happened, and guess what? It worked out for me. So we believe that the reader really, and the viewer, the reader, the person who's hearing this advice, the listener, has to follow her instinct above all else.
Well, if you're just joining me, I'm visiting with Andrea Syrtash, who's the author of It's Okay to Sleep with Him on the First Date and Every Other Rule of Dating Debunked. Well, now, Andrea, when we're saying sleep with him, sex, are we talking about the full deal? Or are we, I mean, when we're talking, I guess we need to get specific. Are we talking about sexual intercourse, or are we talking about just any type of sex?
It means something different to every person.
Exactly.
Truly. So this is, again, why I don't want to give one definite, whatever it means to you. If you don't believe you should kiss someone on the first date, don't kiss someone on the first date. If you believe that you want to have some fun and have intercourse and you're not doing it for any other reason but because you're following your instinct, it feels right and you want to do it and you're an adult and you're both consenting to it, do that. I mean, I can't stress enough that our book, the core message of our book, is not to have sex on the first date. It's that we're trying to make a larger point that experts like Patty Stanger, who say no sex before monogamy, or the rules book that say wait 90 days, or a new book that's out that says wait 30 days. These are arbitrary timelines designed by people you haven't met. And the 30-day rule, and I won't mention her by name, but this particular expert went on television and said, do you know you have a 90% chance of a relationship not working out if you hook up within the first 30 days? Well, the problem with her logic is you have a 90% chance of a relationship not working out whether or not you hook up in the first 30 days. So the cause and effect is off. And there's a lot of shame when women hook up. There's a lot of shame and blame, and we're sick of that. We really want to put an end to that. So that's why we kind of picked a provocative title. But again, we don't think you should hook up on the first date. We just want you to follow what works for you. Okay, let's go to another rule we hear all the time. You should not live together before you're married. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on this old concept here? Well, I can argue both sides, which is why I don't believe in this rule or any other. I've interviewed couples who married after living together quite happily, and I've interviewed ones who broke up and it didn't work. Personally, I don't actually think you need to live with someone before marriage today because chances are you spend so much time together that you have a sense of your habits and your compatibility. Sometimes when you live with someone before marriage, you put them under a microscope, kind of constantly testing, can this work long term? Whereas when you get married, you're in it and you know it has to work and you find ways to make it work. So for that reason, I've lived with someone who I didn't end up marrying. I married someone else. I wouldn't do that again, but that's a personal decision. I've really interviewed couples who have done it and it's worked for them, and I've interviewed couples who it didn't work for them. Well, I can see that. I guess I've always felt like, if you want to live together, if you have no intention of getting married and that's just your decision and both of you agree on that and you're going to live together, then I guess that's fine. If you're adult, you make those decisions. But if one wants to get married really bad, and, I see this a lot where young girls they'll move in with a guy thinking, well, he'll just love being with me, and I'll talk him into marrying me. And I'm like, what are you thinking? It's you're
like,
right. That's a really bad, yes. If one person wants to, marriage is not a unilateral decision. You can't have one person who thinks it should happen and one who doesn't. That will be a relationship full of resentment, for sure. Well, and don't you think that really therein the problem lies when we end up with two people who aren't communicating and women who actually think that they can talk a man into something he doesn't want to do, or anybody for that matter? Absolutely. One of my big relationships principles is that people want to be challenged, not changed. Yes. So they want to be challenged to be better versions of themselves. They don't want to be changed to who you think they should be or make decisions that you want them to make that they don't want to make, because that's the quickest way. Not respecting someone's opinion and values is the quickest way to a breakup, really. No, I agree. Mm-hmm. Well, now, in today's world, we've got this whole new concept of dating through social media. Are there any rules of thumb that need to be broken about the age of the internet? Well, it's still actually new territory, so the rules are still being created, especially for social media. One thing we still hear is that online dating is for losers, or I want to meet someone in the real world. Here's the thing: online dating is the real world. I mean, how much of our lives are spent online? But it's a misnomer, because one big conception about online dating is that you date online. You're supposed to meet online and then take it offline and book a date and get to know if you have the compatibility in person. So I think the internet is a wonderful way to connect people. The issue today is that some people live too much online, and they don't take the time to get to know someone in person, and they have kind of a false sense of who the person is, because you can't gauge everything through your computer screen.
Well, if you're just joining me, I am visiting with Andrea Syrtash, and we're talking about the rules of dating and the ones that should change and not change. Now, can you let me know if there's one rule out there that tends to be accurate that maybe we should follow and not change?
In general, about dating?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, what my co-author would say, the man should always pay on the first date. So I'll quote him on that. He's a guy from Texas. He has, good old Southern values.
Hey, we love those good old Southern values around here.
Yeah, and I think that's actually based in research. I interviewed over 200 women in Manhattan a couple summers ago, and I asked, would you go on a second date if the guy didn't offer on the first? Now, this, we can say it's not fair, we can say it's annoying, we can say, especially with equality, that this isn't right, but most women I interviewed said it's a total turnoff if he doesn't at least offer to pay. And that doesn't mean that she should never chip in or, offer on future dates. But
well, see, I agree. I think it's a total turnoff if he just sort of sits there and waits for you to pull out your wallet, and doesn't even try. I think that's definitely, that would be a turnoff to me. But to me, the tell is, if I want to pay, then I want him to be a friend. Yes,
because you're sending a clear signal at that point that there's not a romantic connection. And that's, I've spoken with women who said they thought they were sending that signal when they split the bill. So it's, dating just can be awkward with all these mixed signals and people trying to interpret what to do. But I think that's one that we've actually found, even though it's a bit old-fashioned, it's something that stands true.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're not telling everybody to just jump in bed for the first time.
No, and by no means. And, it's a funny thing about our book, because, of course, we've gotten hate mail, and I've been called a slut and all these awful things.
I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. We have 300 pages of 50 rules that have nothing to do with sex. So we just put the most provocative one to get people's attention, to drive home a larger point, that arbitrary timelines for intimacy or for connection or for chemistry isn't how it works. Love is not linear. Love is not black and white. It all happens in a very nuanced way, and that's kind of the point we wanted to drive home.
Well, I get it. Well, if you haven't picked it up yet, pick up a copy of It's Okay to Sleep with Him on the First Date and Every Other Rule of Dating Debunked, so you can at least know what those options are, even though, I hope that, and after talking to Andrea, we all aren't encouraging anyone to sleep together on the first date, and at least I'm not. That's my thing, I want them to get to know each other just a little bit, Andrea.
Well, that's fine. I mean, but we want people to get to know themselves more than anything.
Well, that's that's the most important thing.
That's the most
flat
important
out.
Thing. And the book is really about going deeper with your patterns, with yourself, so you know what works and what doesn't work for you, and that's how you're going to make the best decision.
So really, wouldn't it be great if people weren't just like dating until they did get to know themselves?
Yes, I think so. I think I really hate the Jerry Maguire, the famous line everyone quotes.
You complete me?
Yeah, it's a really bad message for people. I think you complete you, and you're going to attract people when you're whole, happy, complete. You love your life. You're passionate about things. That's a great place to be when you attract someone in, because, and you will attract people, because that's a wonderful energy to have. So, I think the most important thing, and the reason I don't really like rules books is because they actually don't go very deep with the reader. They say, do X, Y, and Z, and you'll find love.
So, Andrea, if my listeners want to find you, where do they go?
The best way is to look on our website, which is datingrulesdebunked.com.
All right, Andrea, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks.